All right, Grasshoppers, he is back. It's that time of the week. We've been sitting waiting to see what the result will be. Will it be no shirt? Will it be a full cover shirt? Or will we get a partial view of the mighty chest and shoulders of the
I
great
did this.
Mark?
I did this specifically because I knew that was coming.
You can't, same thing with me wearing a black shirt now. I have to wear a black shirt.
Actually, I was out this morning. I was all bundled up. I had sweatshirts on and everything because it was a little bit fall. But it feels good. I enjoy it.
Tarps off. I remember that saying came from. I first saw it. There was a outdoor game in Buffalo. The guy showed up with a sleeveless shirt, and somebody sent me a thing that said "tarps off." And I'm like, where the heck did that come from?
I don't know, but there's always that one guy that wears shorts right through the dead of winter.
Yeah, totally. They just always wear shorts. Yeah, they cover up the rest of the body and everything, but
they got the shorts on. I kind of admire them for that.
Yeah, definitely. All right, again, this is Mark Puttenvink, trainer du jour. Patriot Training Systems is his company. Trained everybody from Navy SEALs to housewives, to hockey players, football players, everything. So, buddy, how you doing, dude?
Doing well, man. Doing well.
Thank you. I use the word "dude" every once in a while. Is that acceptable?
I think it's in our general language now. It's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a time like maybe a while back I go, dude.
Yeah. Dude.
So now it's we say it without even knowing we're saying it kind of thing.
I do. I think from being around the military guys a lot more now, I say brother all the time. Like, hey, brother.
Well, that too. Yeah.
It's funny stuff. Fine. All right. So, we always like to have fun and be positive with our show. We get some sad news from the National Hockey League, from surrounding the National Hockey League. Jimmy Hayes, who had passed away, I guess about a month ago now, the results came out public that he had cocaine and
fentanyl. He had cocaine and fentanyl in his blood system. I don't know if you guys can hear me. Tom, you froze up on my end here. Tom, wave your hand or something. I think you froze up on me. I don't know if it's on my end or yours. You froze up and disappeared. Is it on your end or my end? Question mark.
Fix it. See, technically savvy.
Yeah. I have no mojo when it comes to technical stuff.
All right, so we're live. Good. All right, guys. Sorry about that. A little delay there. We are back, and that's how far we've come here at True Grit Life. I would have known what to do before, but now we rerouted the router, or rebooted the router.
I would have got a hammer out.
That was next.
Yeah.
That was next. Yeah, definitely. All right. So like we started talking, we like to have fun and be positive on the show, be educational. Again, the sad story from the National Hockey League. And voice of God, Barry Shelley's pretty funny. The voice of God has spoken.
Yes, he has.
So Jimmy Hayes, who we lost, he left behind a young family, wife and kids and everything. We lost him about a month ago, I guess it was. And they just announced over the weekend that they'd found fentanyl and cocaine in his system, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm totally naive about fentanyl. Obviously, I think most people know what cocaine is. Explain that to us again, what fentanyl is. I know we talked about it before the show.
Yeah, fentanyl was originally designed as what they call breakthrough cancer pain treatment, where the patient was terminal and they just want the patient to be comfortable. That's a very, very extremely potent synthetic opioid.
And it's addictive, obviously very addictive. People
well, so what happens is the illegal drug community quickly found out about fentanyl, and they were able to manufacture their own fentanyl. What they do, they'll use it as a cutting agent, meaning they'll take X amount of heroin, generally speaking, add fentanyl to it, and they can increase the volume because it's so powerful. But it in fact is so powerful that there have been occasions where either law enforcement or an EMT is trying to Narcan somebody who's overdosed, and maybe they touch their body, they get a little bit of fentanyl, and they inhale it or ingest it somehow, and they in turn overdose. So it's that powerful of a drug. So what's occurred recently, within the past 6 months to a year, the illegal drug market now is not only using fentanyl to cut heroin, they're also using it with cocaine. We just had another case probably a few weeks ago. There was a couple comedians out in California, younger comedians that are very popular, that one overdosed and died, and the other woman was in the hospital very, very sick. They were doing cocaine that was cut with fentanyl. They didn't know it, or maybe they did. I don't know. I wasn't obviously there, but in any event, they overdosed. And we also lost that black actor. I forget his name escapes you now, but I believe there was fentanyl involved there. It's a really, really powerful, extremely scary, dangerous drug.
So, and again, I'll speak for Mark here when I say this. Obviously, we are not speaking to the Jimmy Hayes case specifically. We're just talking about the drug in general. We don't know all the details. We know what is public. The one thing you say about the Hayes family, and the father came out and said this publicly, admitted that he has an addiction problem himself. How hereditary is just addiction in general? Well,
addiction, so there's no empirical evidence. We don't have like a 30 or 40 year study, but it's looking pretty evident that there is a genetic background to it, so that if your family member, your father, your mother has an addictive personality, doesn't mean you will, but you will have potentially a higher risk of becoming addictive. And in this case, it certainly looks like that may have been the issue that, but there are so many other factors that factor into, we've seen identical twin brothers or identical twin sisters. I read a study once about identical twin brothers. So they have the exact same DNA. One becomes alcoholic, the other one does not. So there are other factors, but certainly hereditary is a very strong component of the addiction issue. And in this case, it appears it may have played into it. I think from your vantage point, my vantage point, because we're involved in ice hockey and professional hockey and amateur hockey, it's unfortunate, but so we know there's a lot of pain medication that goes on at the NHL level. NHL, NFL, NBA, every sport that you're playing for money where you're a professional. If you don't perform, you stand to lose your job. And the issue, the difficulty becomes with the medical part of the doctors and the trainers. How do we identify who's at risk? It's very difficult.
Yeah.
And a lot of these issues come up where maybe they have an injury and they start taking oxycodone and they have an addictive personality. And I remember, I don't know if I mentioned it here on your True Grit, but I had worked with the NHL substance abuse policy, behavioral sciences. I helped out their program because I knew a lot of players. And so in any event, I remember being at an AA meeting. I took a player who was in town from another team, and we took him to the meeting, and there was a young guy sitting there, and he was talking about he broke his arm or something. He had some pain medication, and he said, "I'm an addict. I'm afraid to take them." So I said, "Listen, generally speaking, if it says 1 pill every 12 hours, that's what you take. You don't take 12 pills every hour."
Yeah.
So, and also tell your physician, say, "Hey, listen, I'm an addicted personality. I've had a history of drug abuse. I have some issues. Can we refrain from pain medication? Let me gut it out. Or at least, can you monitor this very closely? Or maybe can we look at a different route other than opioids, maybe just NSAIDs, which are non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, such as Tylenol and ibuprofen and that type of thing."
It's interesting. We do that Thursday show with Ron Greshner, myself, Larry Melnick, James Patrick as often as possible. Dave Maloney was on for a while. And to Ron's credit, to everybody's credit, I think on the show, we're those old school guys, right?
Yeah.
So play back in the 70s and 80s. And, we just never talked about any problems, particularly mental health related problems or addiction. And we were kind of, Ron went off and did some of his homework, and because he was kind of critical. And I was a little bit critical of him, the way he was handling it. To his credit, he went and did some homework and realized, no, we do need to be able to talk about issues like that. Mental health, drugs, alcohol, and even Larry, and again, it's just more of a byproduct of our generation. He said, well, you should be able to tell, we tell if there's something wrong with the guy. And I said, well, my experience of being around people, that is, maybe you can tell when somebody's, but you can't be guaranteed that somebody has got a mental health issue and you can see it. It's visible. In fact, in most cases, people want to hide it. And, especially
that's the issue with most addictions, particularly drug addiction. I mean, when you reach a certain point, you can look at somebody and tell. But what you're touching on, and what I was talking about is, in our community, how do we recognize who's at risk if they don't already have a problem? As it relates to the pain medication, it's very difficult. There's another movement now called #stigma, which is like we shouldn't stigmatize people who have mental health issues. We should encourage them seeking therapy.
Right.
And that's the case. Now, in my other sport, boxing, there's a young man by the name of Ryan Garcia. And I'll only say his name because it's public. I'm not saying anything that no one knows. He's had some mental issues related to just his life in general. So what happened? He was a young man. He really got a huge following on Instagram because he's got incredibly fast hands. He's a talented young guy. And they moved him along and they built him up and he became this kind of mega superstar. Problem is, for him, he still wasn't at that point in his career, boxing-wise, where he really had the pedigree or the body of work to say I'm a superstar. Sure. So they placed a lot of pressure on him, and he just pulled out of another fight. He pulled out of a fight about 6 months ago. He said, "I'm dealing with some mental issues," and now he pulled out of a fight because he says he broke his hand sparring. Very well, may be the case, may not be the case. Right. Problem is, we shouldn't stigmatize this young man. Right. And already on social media, it's funny. I got a little chuckle out of it, but they showed like his X-ray of his hand, and it was a chicken's leg. Yeah. This is the problem. And it's compounded, Tom, as you and I know, and everybody seems to understand now. Social media is a problem.
Yeah, totally. And we're that generational thing too. We're a prime example. Us guys at our show. I mean, you're educated about it, and we're getting educated about it. But in the past, we just didn't deal with it, and we felt like, okay, it's not the past anymore. We never should have. We masked it with alcohol probably more than anything. And now that probably led to a whole bunch of people being alcoholics because that's just the way we dealt with all this stuff.
It's I don't want to say any names, but we had a player, a very famous player. I'll tell you afterwards, but he was playing in the Dan Cronin from, he's the National Hockey League's point man, so to speak, for the behavioral sciences and substance abuse program. Sat down with the general manager going over his aftercare because the player was sent away for rehab for treatment. He's going over the aftercare, and he says obviously the first thing is abstinence, no drinking at all. And God bless him. The GM's an old school guy. He's even older school than you or I.
Yeah.
And he leaned over the table and said, "Even on the road." So there's just
funny. I shouldn't laugh.
No, it is humorous, but it's a lack of understanding and a lack of education, and that's fine too. But that's why we really need to now more than ever take a step back and like, what was it, Gresh? Educated himself.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's, there's been some, and you look at the guys that come out and discuss their issues. Corey Hurst is a great friend of mine now, former Ranger, had his own mental health issues, went and got help, struggled with them for a while and still has to maintain himself. But he's an advocate now for others. And, I think the good thing now is people are starting to not just accept it, but admire him for him talking about it, right? Like you admire Carey Price with Montreal Canadiens for coming out. And again, he has not said, his wife alluded in an Instagram post that there was some mental health issues, and that's why he stepped away from the game for a while. And the league is much better. And I've dealt with these guys too. The guys that run the players, what's that type of players assistance program they call it? With the NHL. Like they're great guys too. I remember I had Sheldon Kennedy, who had been sexually abused by his junior coach, and when he came to me and discussed it, I was still the old farm boy hockey player. I didn't know. I remember. I'll never forget when he called me up and told me the first time he had told his wife and he had told me. Those are the only two people he had told at first about his abuse, and I was just clueless what it was good. Thank God they had just started that program with those doctors, Dan Cronin and Dr. Shaw, I believe.
Yes,
there.
Dr. Brian Shaw and Dr. Dave Lewis. Yeah,
and great guys. And thank God they were there because they knew what to do and say, I had no clue. I learned a lot, and I'm hoping I'm still learning too. But it was, it's just, with those issues, we need to not. And I think, and you're good with this too. I think it's really important to reach out to people and ask them, not just wait for somebody to come to you with help, but be constantly ask people, "Hey, how you doing?" Really your friends and people.
One of the things I've come to learn in working in the veteran community and my, is that they do buddy checks because we're losing on average 22 military personnel per month.
Is it per day?
I'm sorry, per day. Per day. I apologize. I mean, we lost tens of thousands more from suicide than we did in combat, unfortunately. But anyhow, just to do a buddy check. Say, "Hey, Tom, how you feeling today, man? I haven't heard from you. I didn't see you at practice or whatever. Everything okay? Is it, you want to go get a cup of coffee?" And I know it sounds kind of contrite and kind of cliche, but it really needs to be done. And, we live in a society, and I'm guilty of it too. We love to see people that are on a pedestal get knocked down a few pegs. So when we see professional athletes in particular, we go, "Oh, what a guy's a loser," without knowing anything about their life. Without knowing, and imagine, I being a 20-year-old kid or a 23-year-old kid making millions of dollars a year, the enormous amount of pressure, and that's an awful young age to have all that thrown at you.
And in a lot of cases, and I discuss it now with former teammates, I had Jim Thompson on, former LA King, and he went through his drugs and alcohol problems and has now got a fantastic life going on. But we grow up, these athletes, people say, "Well, they're making millions of dollars. Why are they doing that stupid stuff?" Well, because they've been allowed to do stupid stuff their whole lives because they were great athletes. Now, that's not an excuse. That doesn't mean that they should be doing stupid things. I guess I lived the life, and I look at it now and I go, "What the heck was I thinking?"
We just, Tom, we look at any sport. I don't care if it's hockey, football, baseball. We look at guys who continually have issues. And they go from this team to that team because the management thinks, we'll take care of it. We'll solve it. We'll figure out what his problem is. We'll get production out of him. And the problem is, if they're still producing, regardless of what their personal life could be a train wreck, they don't care. I mean, it's not that they don't care, but it's a business. I understand that they got to put the best product on the ice they can. But
I'm a huge New York Giant fan, and I love the days with Bill Parcells and everything, winning the championships and the way he ran the team. But Lawrence Taylor. Again, obviously he must have some mental health issues himself. Some of the stuff he's done off the field in particular to young women, drugs, he's got a family. And people talk about the fact that Parcells wanted him like that. He wanted him to be in the wild man. It was part and parcel. It was 24/7 with him. And,
that it's like Mike Tyson, the same thing that they when Mike Tyson went to Don King, King saw vulnerability in Mike Tyson and realized I can make a lot of money with this guy. And the way I'm going to promote this guy, I'm going to turn him into an absolute animal, like just a vicious human being. And there's a lot of truth in what you said, Tom, in terms of mental issues. So there's a acronym that I came to learn when I went to get educated on this particular subject. It's called MICA, and it stands for mentally ill, chemically addicted. So not only are they chemically addicted to a drug, they're also mentally ill. Now, the mental illness may not be severe, but it's there. It may be bipolar, maybe suffering from bouts of depression and manic episodes. And then you combine the drug with it, it's a really cacophony of problems. It's a smorgasbord of mental health issues and dependency. But so there's a prime example. Lawrence Taylor obviously had some mental issues, but he was also kind of chemically addicted. Yeah. Mike Tyson would be the first one to tell you, look, I've got problems. If you knew how I grew up and the brutality I grew up in my household, and then, he didn't get into the drugs, but his drug was violence. His drug was being that persona. So
like you look at the Vander Kane and you could say, well, what a jerk, what an idiot. Well, obviously there's something wrong there.
Right. Help the kid.
Yeah.
Help the kid. Yeah.
But like Montreal Canadiens are criticized this past draft. In the first round, they took the young boy who had got in trouble. He had taken a picture of a female and gave it to a teammate, and the teammate distributed it, and he got in trouble. And it's wrong. And he's acknowledged it was wrong, and he asked not to be drafted. Now, again, I don't know the young man's situation. What help is he getting? Is he made amends? Is he apologized? Is he helping the victim? I was hoping, and again, we don't know what's happening now. I was hoping some team would draft him, and I was hoping they would draft him, but with the idea that, okay, we're not bringing you to training camp. We first of all, we think you're a great player. You can be in the NHL. They probably wouldn't be doing it if they didn't think he's a great player. Right. But it's also like, come in and let us help you now. Let us help you deal with this issue. And I hope that's happening. Like, I hope it isn't just all smoke and mirrors to make it look like something's being done.
There's certainly a more awareness about issues like this, Tom. And I think it relates also to what I'm doing with the New Jersey Warriors. And Ted and I speak to this very often, where we may ourselves get a little frustrated with a player not responding to emails, and then I got to step back and say, wait, we're here to help. Maybe that particular man or woman is having a bad day or some kind of, and it can get ahead of you. You tend to start, especially with a sport, you start to get where, like, you're not at practice, you're not playing kind of mentality. Yeah. But that's not why we're here. We're here for a therapeutic community to help veterans. Yeah, and totally. Yeah. So
and whether it's a military personnel suffering from PTSD, or anybody else. I don't know if you've seen them. I've added another show on Wednesday afternoon. This fantastic young woman, Jill Brown.
Yeah, she's awesome.
And she's incredible. What she went through in her abusive relationship, and she was diagnosed with PTSD, and her focus more now is helping other people. It seems like that she gets more of it herself and keeps her strong by helping other people.
Well, what you find in the community of therapy, as it relates particularly to drug abuse and mental health issues, most of the people that work in rehabs and treatment centers have a history themselves.
Right.
And I think it makes common sense because they understand the issues and how tough it is. And, again, going back to that old school, you and I had a private conversation about a guy that we both knew who'd say, why can't he just stop? Well, believe me, if he could, he would. Or he or she would. It's a mental health issue as well as, but then it becomes a physical addiction.
It's interesting you talk about reaching out and helping your buddies and everything. When the Afghanistan thing happened a couple months ago, the exit, we'll call it, probably the same as you. I've got these buddies now. This one guy, Ben, that was on Survivor. He's a former Marine or is Marine. Some other guys I've done podcasts with and everything that are Navy SEALs. And it was amazing reaching out to those guys, just to say, hey, how you doing? What's all that's going on? And like Ben in particular, he was like, wow. He says, it's unbelievable that you reached out to me. He says, I'm reaching out to everybody else, but nobody called me to ask me how I'm doing except for you. And it was a 5-minute phone call. It wasn't like it cost me something, and it meant a lot to him.
It means a tremendous amount. It means that somebody's, because we can all get really very easily trapped in our own head and think no one cares, and but people do care, and that's the truth. So that little 5-minute phone call could really make it's a game changer.
It really is. It's amazing, right? And
Yeah.
it's just get in the habit. If you got some spare time, go through your phone book and your phone and just call somebody that you haven't called in a long time and just see how you doing. I really don't want anything. I'm just called to see how you're doing, right?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah. Definitely. My New York Giants. You're a Jets fan, right?
Well, yeah, I admit to it, but I you know what? This year, I put the first game on, and the very first series they had the ball. The first play was a running play, 3 yards in a pile of dust, and the second one, the kid throws an interception. Now he's a rookie, I get it, but I said I can't do this to myself.
I know. Like the
They didn't
Giants
lose yesterday, though.
Oh, Giants were just the Jets didn't lose yesterday. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, especially when like you watched the first game from London, it was the Jaguars and Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
And although it wasn't a perfectly played game, it looked like these guys are competing to try to win. You know, the coach, Urban Meyer, or the offensive coordinator, makes this great play right at the end there to call timeout with 1 second left and then score the winning field goal. And when you watch the Jets and Giants, it's like, does anybody care? It's like they're just not even. There's no passion to the game. It's
Did I ever tell you my CFL story?
No.
So I had a kid, that Jersey kid, actually from the same town here, played at William and Mary. All right, Division I, William and Mary. He was a tweener. He was 6 foot 260, so he was a little bit small to be too big to be a running back, too small to be a linebacker, and too slow to play anywhere.
Right.
Great guy,
very
athletic, had the mindset of a lion, but I couldn't get him. You know, when you go to a combine in the NFL, how fast are you? We'll teach you the rest.
Right.
You know, so the 40-yard dash, they call it the dash for cash.
Yeah.
I could not, with all the training and working on technique, and couldn't get him to break the 5-second mark.
Oh.
So the way they work it, so he wanted to try out. He played tight end at William and Mary, and the deal is that the scouts have a chart. So it'll say, it goes failing, poor, average, good, exceptional, and then rare, right? So, and the 40-yard dash goes by position. So for tight end, I forget it's been so many years, but he was down in the poor to failing area, you know, and that's all they look at.
Oh,
that's all they look at.
Yeah.
But
I wonder where I would have been my skating when I was drafted. They didn't have charts or anything back then, I don't think.
No,
I told the story all the time. Like, we didn't even go to the draft back then. I was cleaning the, the horse stalls at a horse farm in Guelph, Ontario. And I'll never forget too. They called, again, no cell phones. They called my father at our farm, and they just called and said they were drafted by New York Rangers. And that was pretty much the conversation. He then called to the farm where I was working. I went up to the farmhouse and got on the phone. He says, "We've been drafted by the Rangers." I said, "What do I do now?" He says, "Well, get back out there and finish cleaning the out of the stall." that was my draft day. Yeah.
Oh, so this kid, anyhow, Tom, he goes.
Oh, sorry.
I kind of lost train there. He got a tryout with the Hamilton Tiger Cats, right?
Oh.
So he goes up. I didn't go with him. So he calls me up and says, "Hey, coach." I go, "How'd it go?" He goes, "Well, went pretty well." So how'd you do in your 40? He goes, "Well, it was like 28 degrees and snowing, and I'm in shorts, a T-shirt, and sneakers, and I'm sliding and falling all over the place." But I said, "Well, Warren, did you notice that Hamilton is in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada?"
Not exactly a vacation spot, Hamilton.
But he's an interesting kid because he worked and worked and worked. I mean, he made William and Mary as a walk-on, which is just about impossible to do. Yeah. I mean, you could do it, but it's pretty tough. Right. But I sat him down after the football thing to work out. I said, "Listen, with your work ethic, you're going to be fine." And he owns his own business now. He's got 4 kids. He's done very well. So.
Yeah, that's cool. It's good to see that stuff when somebody isn't a high draft pick or whatever. Makes it still. Yeah, definitely. I'm going to learn how to do it, but I'm going to post a video that you sent me before our next show. That you went into some situational awareness, right? Discussion, right?
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
So basically, what it entails is it's a scenario where you're going to your car in a parking deck. Obviously, I did it during the day, so you can see the video, but it could be day or night. And just some simple basic concepts about how we have to just change our thinking as to how we enter our car, exit our car, and keep you safe.
Definitely. My plantar fasciitis. I need to complain to somebody about my plantar fasciitis.
So bad?
Well, I haven't been as good at stretching it too. And you told me that when I stretch it, I did get a new pair of shoes and wearing those. I realized I was walking around in a lot of my bare feet, which is probably bad.
Did you try the golf ball yet, Tom?
I did not do that.
Yeah, that you got to do. It hurts like hell. I'm not gonna lie. hurts like hell, but it really works. It breaks up all that adhesion that's beginning to form. Again, your plantar fasciitis is your heel. You have ligaments going to the toes, which are the largest ligaments in your body. And for whatever reason, they start to contract. And when they contract, they pull up on the heel and cause pain. So it's a matter of having your foot in this position to stretch it out, and also stretch out your calf.
Yeah. I know. And of course, I get cocky because it starts feeling a little better. And then I'm in the gym this morning.
We all do that. I mean,
I get on the Bosu ball. I think it's feeling pretty good. And the Bosu ball tips a little bit and it just pops.
And it's the same thing with my shoulders. You got to do internal rotation, external rotation. It's just so boring.
I know.
Girls can't see how jacked up you are.
Exactly.
No one ever said, you got tremendous infraspinatus.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Oh, it's just, and isn't it something how
chicks dig a guy with a good supraspinatus.
Oh, yeah, totally. And you know what you should and should not be doing, but you still go ahead. And the advice you give somebody else.
I know.
I give it. No problem.
That reminds me of when you remember George Burns, the old time comedian, always had.
Yeah.
He's on Johnny Carson one night, and Carson says, "How many of those cigars did Dady smoke?" He said, "I don't know, 2 to 3." He said, "What do your doctors say?" He says, "Doctors are all dead." I outlived them.
That's funny. That is funny. Yeah. All right, Barry Shelley's got a great question for us here tonight. The Rangers are playing. Is it in Toronto?
Yes. Yeah, it's in Toronto.
So the Rangers got their first win the other night in Montreal. Lafreniere, a Montreal kid, scored a goal, actually.
I really think he's the real deal.
Yeah, you watch him.
For all my Devil fans out there, I kind of poo-poo Jack Hughes.
Yeah.
He looked like a little kid out there. Wow, he made a move the other day. And I said, nah, this kid's he's good.
Is everybody threw the stick up in the stands too?
Yes. Yeah.
It's great. I think it's great now that the players do that and kind of stuff, entertain the fans more. It would have been a brawl back in the day.
Oh, yeah. Right? In the Garden, especially, yeah.
Oh, God.
But Kakko's out, so they're getting a little bit of an injury bug going right now.
Yeah. And Strome's out with the COVID, right? Did he test positive?
Yeah, and I was talking to my buddy this morning. I said, he's that kind of guy. He is so important to that team.
Yeah.
He seems to be a low-maintenance guy, but he's a playmaker. He's sounded. He goes 200-foot game, and he just goes out there and plays really well consistently.
Yeah. And see Nathan McKinnon, in my mind, the best player in the National Hockey League. He's out. He's tested positive again for COVID just twice last week.
Which just makes me question, what's with these tests? Are they accurate? What do they mean?
Yeah.
At what point do we just say, you know what?
Well, and you wonder, apparently there's only 4 guys in the league now that are not vaccinated. Yeah. Because, there's a good example, let's say, Colorado should still make the playoffs fine, but let's say something happens, they miss the playoffs or miss first place by, 4 or 6 points.
Yeah.
And McKinnon wasn't available for those. So
exactly.
It is affecting the game already. But the good thing is, Kevin Allen and I talked about it on our show last week, I remember when the pandemic first started, and Bill Daly, I think, of the National Hockey League made the quote, just because there's some positive tests doesn't mean we would cancel the season. And I remember thinking, what? You wouldn't cancel the season? Now it's like, okay, we get positive tests.
Yeah, I think there's a COVID hangover now. People are really tired of it. And I think the reality is, I may be wrong. I hope I'm right, but I think we're out of the woods. Certainly people are still getting sick and dying, but the data shows that it's really on the way down. I hope.
Yeah, I see where Colin Powell, he's an older gentleman too, but
he's 84. So he fit into that demographic, 80 plus.
Yeah.
I think, it's unfortunate, but a lot of things will kill you at 84.
Yeah.
That wouldn't kill somebody who's 24.
Yeah, definitely. We didn't answer Barry's question. Who's going to win Rangers are going to win tonight, but I think what's his name? I don't think Austin Matthews is back yet, and he's practicing with his team, but not back.
Yeah, we have a wrist issue.
Yeah.
It was funny. I don't know if you caught it. I don't know if you read the New York Post yesterday, but I guess it's Larry Brooks, maybe.
Yeah.
He said for the next Caps game, the Rangers are dressing Rudy Poshek, Sandy McCarthy, and Dale Purinton. So I sent it to Dale. He got a kick out of it.
That's funny. Yeah, all the build up for that, and there's nothing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think I understand the fans' point of view why they, maybe wanted or expected it's going to happen, but that's the point of those. And that's the point of having Reeves and changing the outlook of the team is so that those things don't happen, right? You don't want to go make
there were a lot of eyes on that game. There will be, I'm sure, I'm in New Jersey too. We'll see what happens with Subban. Probably nothing because Reeves ultimately didn't get hurt that bad. unfortunately.
Yeah, and even I thought it was a slew foot. I mean,
it was
it wasn't
absolutely a slew foot. There's no question in my mind.
but even
And
Jared Gallant, the Ranger coach, came out and said he didn't think it was a slew foot. So
I wonder if that's one of those things where,
Yeah.
no. And then he's in his head going, "We're going to get you, bud."
yeah, totally. Yeah, it could be right. I mean,
You know,
keep the
and
focus.
Subban played it off like, to the trainer, "Got to get here." Come
I
on.
know.
I have no respect for that kid. I'm sorry. It's just my personal.
Yeah. Like there's another young kid where you'd like to go to him and find out what's going on too, right? I mean, he does some things like he won the Norris Trophy. Now he's not even the best defenseman on his team. So,
I mean, last year, was it last year? Was it number 5 or number 6?
Yeah, I know. Feel bad for him. All right. So sorry about the technical difficulties, but again, the positive side, it shows how brilliant we are.
Yeah.
The IT now, get that thing fixed.
Got the hammer out. Boom.
Yeah, the hammer out. Fixed it. All right, brother. Good to see you again. We'll see you next week.
Yes, sir.
See you, everybody.